It's another episode of the BTO Sunday recap coming to you on a Tuesday because of Christmas. Mike and I decided to wait until after the games, a lot of Monday games, so we couldn't even break it down Sunday night if we wanted to, but we were both out. Mike was playing Santa Claus for his family on Sunday night. That video maybe will reach the public one day, but for now, we're here to talk football. We're here to talk NFL. And we've got a special episode really well planned out. One of the first times the two of us have ever decided to use our brains before a Sunday recap or before anything we do. So we go through this weekend, and a lot of stuff that we talked about last week did not come true, especially with the 49ers in last night's game. We said, and I don't know if we said it on the recap, but we said it to each other numerous times throughout the week. They were going to roll. We were in the majority thinking that San Fran is just going to roll. And how about Baltimore showing up ready to play? And they came out and made a statement last night.
Yeah, I mean, the defense, I think they've gone a little bit under the radar here at how good the Baltimore defense is, but they really showed up in that game. They put Purdy in a box, picked them off with 4 times. It was just an impressive showing from that defense. And then obviously the offense, you got to take care of business. And, I may not agree with it. We'll get to it in a little bit. Lamar Jackson had, sort of an MVP level performance to kind of really put himself in the conversation and even become the favorite now. But they just overall played very well. They've dealt with a lot of injuries, Baltimore. They're a good football team, and they showed that. Do they deserve to be considered the best? I still think it's San Francisco, but obviously after beating them the way they did in San Francisco, you can say they are better.
I think after this game, either of the two are just totally a fair number one. I would go Baltimore because, Mike, you're right. The defense, totally underrated the whole year. Roquan Smith is just transformative as a linebacker. He changed the entire team. This guy, Mike McDonald from Michigan, defensive coordinator, he's going to get a head coaching job this offseason. He is the Sean McVay, young up-and-comer, hot defensive coordinator, and he's going to get a head coaching job this offseason. What a job he's done. And Kyle Hamilton's a superstar back in safety, probably the best in the league. He was poised to do that right out of Notre Dame, though. I think everybody saw that coming for him being a top 5 safety at least. This defense is loaded. Marlon Humphrey's great. But the thing that stands out about the Ravens is all 22, no matter which phase of the ball, whichever 11 guys are on the field, just seem totally dialed in. And that's a John Harbaugh thing. I think he's a top 3 to 5 coach in the league. I'd take him over almost anybody. He's one of my 7 cannot get rid of coaches in the NFL. And he's got these guys ready to play every single week. This Ravens team feels a little bit different than any of the other ones Lamar's had.
Yeah, and it's the defense. And you said it about Harbaugh. He's the man. I agree with you. He's one of those guys I wouldn't fire anybody for. I'd keep him no matter what. They're very well coached. It's funny, their defensive line, they get so much pressure and you don't know any of their names. You know Jadeveon Clowney, who's been washed up for a couple of years. He's making a big impact on that Ravens defensive line. They just got guys that you've never heard of. And it's funny, when the Browns got off to that historic start defensively before they lost all these guys to injuries, the Ravens defense, their numbers were fantastic. And they compared to the 2000 Ravens, who were one of the best defenses ever. So they've just been this good all season long. And now, to put that offense in the position that they did last night with all of those guys, I mean, I think it was an eye-opener for a lot of teams around the league to say, wow, you did that to them?
We'll talk later about how they stack in the rest of the AFC, but now how do you feel about San Francisco? You kind of mentioned it a little bit. I don't think that they get a better team than Baltimore in the NFC. I absolutely don't think that. I think that the Eagles, who we'll get to, are just not quite there, and I still believe they're the second best team in the conference. But Baltimore now just kind of exposes Purdy a little bit. I don't know if another team can replicate what Baltimore did, but to go into San Francisco, that brings up some concerns for me with Brock Purdy, who we both praise and love and think is a very good quarterback. And I still feel that way today. Every quarterback has these games, but I don't know, something now just doesn't feel right the day after with San Fran's team, especially at quarterback.
Right. And you're right. The teams have these games in the NFC. Look at the teams that are chasing San Francisco. I mean, Philadelphia, and we'll talk about them later, obviously. They didn't play well on Monday. Dallas had a bad game that they probably should have won on Sunday night. Detroit has looked fraudy all season long, and if you're not playing a fourth-string quarterback who doesn't turn the ball over 4 times, you're going to lose that game. So none of these teams in the NFC, in my mind, match up well, even come close talent-wise to what San Francisco has. I think San Francisco still runs through the NFC. And like you mentioned, you're not getting a better team in the NFC than Baltimore. And you're probably not getting a better team out of the AFC anyway. And then you got to think, well, the playoffs are such a crapshoot, especially in the AFC where you have Josh Allen, who's hot. You have Kansas City, who not playing well. And we'll get to them later, too. Anything can happen with them. So it's not a lock, I think, for Baltimore to get there, where as I look at the NFC, I think it's a lock still that San Francisco, even with this bad game, gets in.
Absolutely agree. We'll get to the playoffs a little bit more later on. Only 2 weeks left to play in the NFL before we are at the dance. I think the other prediction that we had, or the other conversation we had that was really prevalent last week, you can catch some of it on our social medias in Instagram Reels or TikTok, wherever you consume our content, was the Jaguars. And we talked about the Jaguars. I talked about the Jaguars ad nauseum all summer long. I was so excited for the Trevor Lawrence leap in year 3 with Doug Peterson and their second year together and Calvin Ridley. But man, this felt like rock bottom for Jacksonville this week. Trevor Lawrence is very banged up, but I'm not going to make excuses for him. There's a lot of concern for the future of Jacksonville football because they might not make the playoffs this year. I know that they're in that 4 spot right now, but Houston and Indianapolis are right on their tails, and one of those teams, maybe 2 of those teams, are going to get in, and Jacksonville is not a lock for that to happen.
No, they're 100% concerning. You watch that game against a Buccaneers team. Listen, I think they're better than people thought, but if you're Trevor Lawrence, you're coming back, you've got these guys. And again, we talked about the weapons. You still have guys on that team that can make plays. And I think you're the more talented team going into that game. To get blown out in the fashion that they did is embarrassing. Is this a coaching problem? We kind of tried to dissect this last week. What is the main issue? I'm starting to think now, maybe it's the quarterback. And again, yeah, sure, you're banged up, but to play as bad as you did in that game, then maybe you shouldn't be out there. Maybe, they should have just made the decision not to play him if you're that banged up. But maybe it's offensive line, maybe it's coaching. I have no clue what the problem is because I think now we're starting to run out of excuses, and it's going to be put on the quarterback.
I'm going to go back to where I went last week. I think it's partially Lawrence, but these weapons are not that good, man. I mean, you look at Tampa, I totally disagree with you about who's the better team and more talented team. Evans is an A. Godwin is better than Ridley or Kirk. Rashad White is not worse than Etienne. I tell you, Travis Etienne's not that good.
Yeah. Was it you that brought it up to me that he might be a little bit overrated?
Last week, he's not that good.
Yeah, he might be, because then I've been seeing stuff floating around too that this past week about him being a little overrated. Yeah, his numbers were compared to Najee Harris, and they they were like, oh, Najee's labeled a bust, and Etienne's labeled this exciting, explosive running back.
And it's because of the reason I said last week, because Travis Etienne's a top 10 fantasy football running back. And that has changed the perception of so many people. But when it comes to winning football games in real life, Travis Etienne is not that good. He has a lot of garbage time stats. He has a lot of goal line touchdowns that have increased his scoring production. But overall, I mean, you turn on a Jaguars game, you don't say, man, Etienne's tough to stop. He's not one of those running backs.
I want to look up, where's this Jags defense ranked too? Like, do they have a good...
I tell you, man, I mean, taking Trayvon Walker with the first pick altered this franchise so negatively because I was talking to my dad about this last night. That edge rusher class is going to be a very good one when you look back in 10 years. Kayvon Thibodeau went at 5. He's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. He sets the edge really well. He's having a nice second season jump here. Jermaine Johnson went at the end of the first round. He's having a nice second year for the Jets. You have guys all over scattered. I have to pull it up. Scattered through the second round, all of whom are better than Trayvon Walker. Now, Walker could still be a good player, but every team is getting production out of their defensive players from that draft in their second year. Everyone's taking a jump except the guy that went 1. Even Derek Stingley at 3. I mean, Derek Stingley is a corner, and then you had Sauce Gardner at 4. Derek Stingley at 3 was very, very concerning last year. D'Amico Ryans comes in. Derek Stingley is one of the top 15 corners in the NFL. So you're going to look back at all these defensive studs, all these all pros, and you're going to say, how did Jacksonville take a guy who shouldn't have even been the first pick? It's not like he's a bust. It's not like you took Hutchinson one and he stinks. Walker should not have been the first pick of that draft, and it's shown.
It was weird because leading up into that draft, you're kind of just looking at, you're trying to predict who they're going to take, and just word was they're in love with this kid Travon Walker. And it's funny, I don't know anything about Walker. Nobody talks about him. Nobody talked about him before the draft. It's just such a weird scenario there, at least in my view. Like, I don't hear a thing about him. And he doesn't make impacts on the field where you're saying, oh, wow, yeah, this guy, I can see why they took him number 1. You don't see that at all. So it's very strange. Defensively, I just look points allowed this year. They're bottom of the league, bottom of the middle half of the league. It's just not much is going right for this team and for this franchise. And again, you want to say it's Lawrence, you want to say it's other things. I don't know. I gotta reevaluate the way I look at Trevor Lawrence and this Jacksonville team. Because by the way, I don't think they might not win this division. You're right. Maybe the Texans
I'd rather
get
see
Stroud
Houston.
back. Yeah, they get Stroud back. I don't know what the schedules are, how they line up, but you never know. I think they play Jacksonville, right? Week 17, do they play Jacksonville?
Next week, the Jaguars are home against Carolina. I mean, give this team a challenge, please, down the stretch here. It's a cakewalk. I mean, Carolina's looked a little better. So I'm not going to say Carolina's totally pedestrian now, but that's embarrassing.
Jacksonville, you can't go into that game thinking you're just going to walk all over them.
The Colts are home against the Raiders. Raiders are a tough game. Raiders are a tough game. Houston's home against the Titans, tough division game. And then week 18, you have Jaguars at Titans, and Colts host the Texans. So Texans got to win their last 2, and they need Jacksonville to lose 1 to the Jaguars or Panthers, to the Titans or Panthers, which is probably not going to happen.
It could happen, though, Kevin, the way they've played. And again, like I just said, can't go into that Carolina game think you're just going to walk in and win. And that Titans game, where they get Levis back or not, you're going to be facing a veteran quarterback in Tannehill if he's not playing. That could be a tough game as well. Vrabel is coaching for pride. I mean, I don't think he should worry about his job, but I'm sure in the back of his mind, he's saying, I got to win a couple of these games. And it's a division game. You put that on your resume, 100%. I want to talk about something maybe in my overreaction, but I think Vrabel's going to want that game, to end the year.
All right, so let's move on here to the other side of this game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Your thoughts first before we get into a little Baker Mayfield discussion.
Yeah, it's funny. They won a game for me. One of my hotter takes to start the year was that the Bucs were going to win and cover in Minnesota to start the year. Okay, the week 1 game. I don't know if you remember this game.
Yes,
with Baker Mayfield. And they won. They won the game outright. And I was so happy and I was so high on the Buccaneers after that week 1 win. I said, I'm going to bet them to win the division. And of course, the idiot I am, I didn't do it because I'm like, it's probably not sustainable. Baker's not going to play like this. And yet Baker's played like this all year. This team has come around. Maybe they're not that badly coached by Todd
No,
Halls.
they are.
You still think they're that bad, poorly coached?
Yeah, I think they're a really poorly coached team, but I think that
they got talent.
I think they have the best coach in the division. I think Arthur Smith blows.
They got talent, man, and it's shown. It really has, and it's funny that you had a team, basically almost the same team with Brady last year. I mean, he had a lot of injuries up front, but it's almost the same team, and they struggled. They limped to get into the playoffs, and they have the same amount of wins now as they did last season. So it's funny the way this team and the way the NFL works with how good Baker's looked, and just overall, man, they're an interesting team. And Kevin, are they a team that you wouldn't want to see in the playoffs, possibly?
Well, I think they are.
You that far on them
in the playoffs? I think I'd want to see them in the playoffs because they don't have a tremendous home field advantage. So that's a road game. It's going to be Dallas in there on the road in the first round of the playoffs, and that was the matchup last year. I mean, Dallas gets the free first round bye essentially every year, and I think this is the same deal because I don't know. Once you get to the playoffs, you need to have a coach and quarterback who have been there. I don't dislike Mayfield, but I just can't trust Todd Bowles to be a Cowboys team that I think pretty highly of. That a team that went in there last year and blew out Brady in the Bucs. So, but
Is this team better than them though?
this team's better than them. This team has a different feel because Brady was in kind of a, okay, this is done. This team's not that good, and we won our Super Bowl. That's it. Job was done. This team, though, it was, we might get the first pick. Mike Evans wants to leave. Now, hey, we're going to be in the playoffs. We're going to win our division. We're going to have a home game, at least one home game in the postseason, maybe more. So let's go. I mean, Baker brings a swagger and a contagious energy to the teams he plays for when he's winning. When he's not winning, he's a tough guy to have around, it seems, because of that energy, because of that confidence. But when he's winning, man, it is tough to not jump on board. That's what made Cleveland special that year or two with him, I think, because he came in and he took them out from the grave, and they were so bad, man. They were so bad forever, and he took them out and he injected life into every player on the team because of his personality. And when he's playing well, it just goes together so well.
And it's so funny because now we got to think about it. He's on a 1-year deal. What is he going to get paid? What is this guy going to get paid?
Listen, if Jimmy Garoppolo got a 3 for 66, I believe it was, or 3 for 70-ish, Mayfield's going to get more.
I think the better comp is the Geno contract.
The three was the same as Jones's, wasn't it?
It's like 3 for 90, I think.
All right, well, let's talk about it.
After 1 or 2 years.
We've got 13 quarterbacks here. For Baker Mayfield, who'd you rather? Let's see where Mayfield stacks out of that middle portion. So we've eliminated from this the top 7-ish quarterbacks in the league. Lamar, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Herbert, Rodgers, and whoever else I'm missing. And we also eliminated Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Derek Carr, Desmond Ridder, the guys that you just know Mayfield's better than.
Wait, so can I ask this question before we start?
Yeah.
Are we going to do this based on like going forward or just this year? What are we doing here?
Let's just say you're a general manager in 3 weeks, your season's over. Or, in 8 weeks, your season's over and it's free agency times coming up. And you have a choice between Trevor Lawrence or Kirk Cousins or one of these guys that you're kind of on the fence with, or Baker Mayfield in free agency, and money doesn't exist.
Okay.
So money does not exist. Contracts don't exist. You just get to pick one to be your quarterback because then the money adds too many layers to this conversation. All right. Yeah. Time for Baker Mayfield. Who'd you rather? Let's start. Daniel Jones, Giants quarterback. This goes off of starting quarterbacks as well from the beginning of the season. So Daniel Jones, starting quarterback, New York Giants, or Baker Mayfield.
It's got to be Baker. I mean, even in Daniel Jones's best year, Baker's better.
Got to be Baker. Agreed. Broncos quarterback, Russell Wilson.
That's a tough one. I think, especially going into next year, it's got to be Baker. It's got
to be Baker. Kyler Murray.
That's a tough one because I think I would go Kyler just because of what he adds with his feet.
I would go Baker, but good one. Justin Fields.
Baker.
Deshaun Watson.
So this is where a conversation can really be started because it's got to be Baker just based on the last year. What we've seen on tape from Deshaun Watson has not been good.
And which is fascinating because Deshaun's the replacement. He's the big shiny replacement for Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, and I'd rather have Baker. Bryce Young, first overall pick of this year's draft.
Yeah, it's got to be Baker. I think Bryce can have a good career, but it's got to be Baker.
Yeah, I'm going Baker. Too much uncertainty with Bryce. Jordan Love.
Again, I think Jordan Love's looked good the past few weeks, but I mean, especially going into just the next season, I'd probably still say Baker Mayfield.
Matt Stafford.
Who would you say?
Stafford, easily.
No, I'm saying for Jordan Love. You never said
for
Jordan
Love? I agree with you. Mayfield.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
if
Stafford
I don't say
easy.
anything, it means I agree.
Okay. Stafford easy.
Stafford easy. Purdy
easy.
Geno.
I'm going Baker. I
I'm
think
going
I think
Baker.
there's been a little concern this year with Geno.
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk.
All right, down to our final two. Dak Prescott.
Dak. I'll go Dak.
I go Dak, and I think it's disrespectful that we included him on this list. And lastly, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, it's gotta be Baker. It has to be.
I'm gonna go Trevor Lawrence.
He's still sticking to it.
Because I think Baker's at his ceiling here. And I have to imagine Trevor Lawrence is not. There's no way this is who Trevor Lawrence is going to be as a quarterback. And here I go again onto the Trevor Lawrence love fest. There's no way this is how it ends.
You say that, and I would agree with you, but then I watch this guy play, and I'm like, no, it might be.
There's so much left to be desired. There's so much left to be desired, man.
We forgot one more guy that I would want to add. What about Goff? Did we say Goff?
No, I didn't say Goff.
I think their numbers are very comparable, especially this season.
That's a tough one, man, because I'm a Goff truther as well.
So am I.
I'm gonna go Baker.
I think I'm gonna go Goff. I've just seen it for too many years. I leaned Baker before we came on, and now I would say Goff.
All right. So that's through. So if that puts Mayfield in like the 10 to 14 range of quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
And who would have seen that coming? I mean, this was a team that, along with Arizona, was just pinned for the first pick of the draft. And it certainly has not turned out that way for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, no, it's nuts. It's crazy. Again, that pick was criticized, man. The number 1 overall pick was criticized, and maybe he's turning it around. And I always forget how good that Brown team was. That one that almost beat that Chiefs team in Kansas City that year. I always forget about how good that team was.
They almost pulled off that win.
They were close. One of the only teams
that year they would have played, but the Chiefs beat Buffalo in the second in the conference final, right? Not Cincinnati.
Yes. No, the next year was Cincinnati. They lost to them.
Yeah, man. Baker had something about him in Cleveland. I wasn't surprised they moved on from him, but I was shocked at the pick when they made it. But I liked it, even though I was a Josh Allen truther. My highest.
You were Baker. You were fine with Baker there.
I was all right with Baker there because I liked John Dorsey, the general manager at the time.
Yeah.
So I trusted that he was making a good pick. But here's my thing with Baker in that draft, and I looked at it. I didn't include Josh Rosen. I looked at it as Darnold, Mayfield, Allen. Darnold is the guy that probably has the best pure quarterback traits in college. You're going to get a turnover issue, but he might be the 45 touchdown. He's he was my favorite pocket passer. He might be the 40 touchdown guy while throwing 18, 19 picks. I thought he was a lot like Brett Favre. Thought he was a lot like Tony Romo, but he didn't work out, obviously. I would not have taken Darnold with the first pick. I would have taken Allen first because I love a project. Like Anthony Richardson this year, I would have taken first. And in hindsight, Stroud, I would have taken Stroud third, but I would have gone Richardson. The same rule applies for that draft. I would have got Mayfield second, though, because I thought he just put on the best college tape out of any of them. He was so good at Oklahoma, man. Was
it more of a safer thing for you with him than the other two?
Yeah, he was the safety guy. You knew that he was accurate. I think he throws a great ball, man. I think he throws a terrific ball, Mayfield. I think he plays the underneath and mid-range game, that anything from the line of scrimmage to 18 yards, I think he's real accurate. I like Mayfield a lot, and I love the confidence. I do. I think sometimes it makes him a villain, but in the locker room, those guys are great. Those guys are praised. But when you're 4-10 and he's walking in acting cocky, it's over. So that's the issue with a guy like that.
And you know what? And looking back on it, I think I did this too like a year ago when I'm like, why did they move off from Baker to go to Deshaun? And you look at the 2021 season, he did not build off of at all the 2020 season that he had, which was really good. 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, the exact stat line he has right now. So he goes 17 touchdowns, 13 picks in 2021 with a loaded roster. You're sitting there saying, we got guys. We're not paying a lot of these guys right now. we got to go win a freaking Super Bowl and we got to go bring in a star level player. So moving off of him made sense at the time. It just hasn't worked out. I mean,
listen,
it was the right
hindsight's
move.
2020. Deshaun Watson
Yeah.
was so good. He was insane in Houston, man. That team, if this team had that guy, it would have just been. They might not
they're
have
the one
lost the
seed.
game, man.
They're the 1 seed, even with the injuries. They're so loaded. You know, yeah, they might be the 1 seed. Easy.
They are far and away the best team in the league if Watson is that guy. Now,
he was always the X factor. They were always this X factor team, though, coming into the year. It's like if you get that guy, it was so difficult to predict them. It was, and it still is, because now
it was. And how about they lose Watson, they lose Chubb, and if the Ravens lost last night, they were a serious 1 seed contender.
Yeah. They've lost their entire offensive line.
Ravens definitely the best team, and all the injuries to the offensive line, man. Kevin Stefanski's coach of the year. I don't even think it's close.
Gotta be.
It's him, Harbaugh, or Steichen if the Colts find a way, but it's really him or Harbaugh.
Yeah, we debated Steichen and Stefanski last week. I think at this point it's got to be Stefanski.
It's got to be Stefanski because I don't think the Colts are going to get in.
No, they're probably not going to get in.
But great first year for Steichen, anyways. Another game in the AFC between the Chiefs and the Raiders. We know about the 60-point curse. You can see it on my Twitter. The 60-point curse. Raiders shut it up. They win 20-14 in Arrowhead. How high out of 10 is the level of panic with the Chiefs?
Got to be an 8. Kelsey, man, just a weird situation with him. Really looks checked out. Really looks like his heart's not in it at this point. Looks like a different player, man. And if you don't have that guy going, and with the receivers that they have, what are you going to do? There's nothing he can do, Mahomes.
They are toast, man. I think they are. But they got maybe the best defense in the conference.
They might.
They gave up 6 points yesterday, the defense, and they lose 20-14.
62 passing yards to Eno Conley. He had no passing yards after the first quarter.
It's one of those games. It just boggles your mind that they lost it.
Yeah, you can't give up points like that. You can't literally hand them points.
Mahomes, you could see Mahomes starting to fold a little bit right now because, and I'm not blaming him. This is not a rip on him. He's got nothing to work with. He's got nothing
to work with. He looks unlikable, Kevin. The first time ever, this guy looks so completely unlikable because he's screaming, he's yelling, he's crying about referees. Does not look good.
Because the difference is from what we're seeing now, and Mahomes, you can call it unfair. His barometer is always going to be Brady. It's always going to be now. That is the guy. He came into the league. He came in at the end of Brady. Brady's the greatest of all time, and rightfully so, Mahomes' barometer is Brady. And it's just the Brady yelling was different because Mahomes, it feels a little more like pouting sometimes. Mm-hmm. And the Brady yelling was, we're down by 3. I'm going to rip Danny Amendola for whatever he just did. And then the next drive, they go out and they score. And Mahomes, it's just, I don't know, man. It doesn't feel like leadership yelling at all. And I have no idea. I don't even know what he's saying half the time. But it feels more like I'm the best player here. Somebody please help me.
He deserves it. Like he's supposed to have this. And it's the first time I think in his career he's kind of feeling the adversity of not having the talent around him. Because he's always had Hill, he's always had Kelsey at his best. I think, you've talked about it. You got to consider losing Eric Bieniemy 100% at this point. That's definitely got to be a concern. But I think it's obvious now with the weapons that if they don't figure this out in the next 2 weeks, they're going to be an early exit, Kevin. I mean, they're not that good. You got
this team, right? So right now, if I can do the bracket properly, do they reseed? I always forget every year with every sport.
I think they reseed.
They reseed. Yeah. The NFL reseeds.
Baseball doesn't.
The one being Baltimore would get Buffalo in the second round, which this is based on projected wins also. That's an awesome second round. The Chiefs are probably going to be in Miami to play the Dolphins. Chiefs beat them in Germany earlier in the year. Man, that's a great second round. That's a terrific second round if we can get it. Baltimore, Buffalo in Baltimore. Chiefs, Dolphins in Miami. Anyways, I digress. Oh, wait, that's not possible. Is it
Why not?
possible? It is possible. Is it?
One.
No,
Yeah, it
because the
is. If
Jaguars
you
have to play the
reseed,
Browns. No, the
if
first
you
round right now would be Chiefs-Bills. Chiefs are the 3 seed. So the first round right now would be Chiefs-Bills. The Chiefs don't make it past that game. There's
no,
no
they
way.
would lose. They would lose to Buffalo.
They would lose that game, and then the second round would be Buffalo. So we're just going to go right into our playoff talk here because
Yeah.
we're basically already in it. So it
Right.
would be Chiefs, Bills in the first round. Bills win. Bills move on. They're now the 4 seed of the 4 remaining teams. Who would you like in Cleveland, Jacksonville there?
Cleveland. Cleveland wins that game.
Cleveland, I agree. So it will be Cleveland in Baltimore. What a storyline there. Flacco
Jeez.
back in Baltimore. Buffalo and Miami, an AFC East game, would take place. And they actually play in week 18 as well. Those
Can
two
that
teams.
still be for the division if Miami loses
It can
this
be
week?
if Miami loses this week, but this week they had the easier of their 3 games to finish the season. This week coming up, it's
No, they have Baltimore, Miami.
Miami. Oh no, they're in Baltimore. Yeah, you're right. So no, if Miami loses this week and the following week, they would lose the division.
Because Buffalo would, or essentially saying Buffalo beats New England, which I think they're going to kill them after losing in New England earlier in the year. Then that game would be set up for the division. So we're rooting for Buffalo to. We're definitely rooting for
and for
Baltimore to beat Miami.
Yeah, because that sets up a nice Week 18 game there, and then over in the
probably,
NFC,
they could flex that in too to Sunday night, which would be nice because they keep that open.
That'd be awesome. I really hope that the Texans can find a way into that 4 seed, man. Right now, they're 3rd in the tiebreaker with Jacksonville and Indianapolis, so they got a tough path.
Well, what about wild card wise? I mean, are they? So they're definitely still behind Indianapolis.
Right now, they're the 8. Indianapolis is the 7.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh's out. There's no way.
They got a tough final 2.
Cincinnati's probably bagged 10 seed.
Yeah, they're both done.
Great job this year by Zach Taylor. I'll throw that out.
Yeah. The first Sunday recap show, I wanted to come here and rip Zach Taylor, and I think can't.
It stinks.
No, I don't, Kevin. I think what he's done with Browning, I think he's got my stamp of approval now. Offensive
now I feel
guy,
good about him.
Able to win with the backup. It's not just Burrow. He and the weapons, because the weapons have been banged up. They haven't been playing that well, and they're still able to produce a lot of points with Browning back there.
Yeah, no, he's impressed me this year, Zach Taylor, because I did not think he could pull that off. I actually 2 or 3 weeks ago had a moment where I said to a few friends, they lose out. Belichick is the coach of Cincinnati. That's way out of the
they should extend Taylor.
Now.
I was never a Taylor guy. I was with you. I thought he stunk. I thought he was just Burrow, a product of Burrow. He's not. He can coach. Credit to him. And they got a good coaching staff there too.
They do. Callahan, the OC, is going to be a head coach next year too. I don't know about Anarumo because defensive head coaches it's tough to hire these guys right now. It's tough to hire these guys.
He's been considered for so many jobs too. I know he interviewed for the Giant job a couple of times.
Yeah.
He's been considered by a lot of teams and just hasn't gotten hired.
But with the large cycle this year, he might. Let's look at NFC playoffs, and then after that we'll talk MVP quick. 49ers are still the 1. Which of these 4 teams that clinched, rank these 4 clinched teams now, because they are in the class alone, of course, aside from the other 3 teams. 49ers, Lions, Eagles, Cowboys. How do you put them together?
I'd go 49ers, Cowboys, Eagles, Lions.
So Cowboys over Eagles.
Yeah, I don't think the Eagles are very good, Kevin. I watched them yesterday against the Giants, and there's a lot wrong with that team. They're not putting teams away. I mean, the Giants are a talentless bunch on offense, and you're up 17-3, and you let them back in.
So, which game discouraged you more? Dallas losing in Miami, Dallas and Dallas losing to a good team. However, Miami's been labeled as the good team who can't beat good teams. Yeah. So Dallas is their first real quality win of the year. And then you had the Eagles overcoming the Giants, which definitely a concerning win. Giants should not have been in that game, but they were, and they almost won at the end. What game concerns you more? It's got to be the Giants game, right? Giants Eagles.
It's Philly. It's Philly in that Giant game. Again, Dallas, you can't fumble at the one, and Pollard, I don't know if you saw the angle on that early, the
Yeah,
first drive. How does Pollard not get in the end zone? You score there, that's a completely different ballgame. You probably win the
I will.
game.
I will say about that play because it's going everywhere. Bad read by Pollard. I'm not going to. I think being a running back, if you just put your eyes in it, got to be impossible in the NFL. I don't know
Yeah.
how these guys do it, but either way, that was a great tackle by the safety or the nickel on that to keep him
Yeah.
out of the end zone. I mean, that was impressive.
And I saw this post on Instagram, and it's so true. It's like, this is why coaches preach effort and
Yep.
tackling and things like that, because that ends up being a 7-point tackle. Again, I'm not taking credit for that, but I saw this on Twitter. That is a 7-point tackle in that game and ultimately saves the game. You win the game by 2 points or a point, whatever it was. Yeah, it was 2.
Yeah,
It got screwed by the half.
that was a great tackle. That was a huge win for Miami. That was an incredible win for Miami. I don't think Miami could win a road playoff game. I'm going to be totally honest with you,
Probably not.
unless it ended up being in. I mean, what's a road destination? If somehow they had to go on the road to, I mean, obviously they wouldn't have to this year, but if they had to go on the road to one of those AFC South teams, I think they could win one. But otherwise, I don't think Miami could win a road playoff game with this field. They can't win in Buffalo. They can't win in Cleveland. They can't win in Kansas City. They can't win in Baltimore. And with the exception of Baltimore, they won't have to go to any of those places unless they lose the last 2 weeks. If they lose the last 2 weeks, very possible they have to go to all those places.
It's funny because look at that playoff game last year against Buffalo. Was that Buffalo just being just done and they weren't that good? And Skylar Thompson almost wins the game. The third string quarterback almost wins the game in Buffalo. Or was that coaching and Miami just playing better than they should have? I don't know what that game was, but yeah, I don't see them going to a cold weather city and going and winning that game on the road.
No,
Back to the Eagles though. I wanted to. They're concerning, dude, and they are. I don't know what the word is. They don't run the ball enough when they should. Hurts does not. Hurts is concerning. I don't even know what to say about Hurts, but he's just very concerning. And I think the frustration there in Philadelphia from the fans, from just overall the people in the city, I think, should you be concerned? Because I think you should if you're an Eagles fan. If you cover this team, I think there's a concern here.
Do you see at all, like I do, and I don't know if it's going to happen, the parallel between Wentz and Hurts right now that is happening with the Eagles?
Would have called you crazy a week or two ago if you told me that, but I mean, yeah, could it be? He's digressed so much. He's regressed, excuse me, so much. And are you blaming the knee? Is the knee that much of an issue?
I don't know, because you know what, man? Every single guy is hurt at this point in the year.
Yeah.
Every guy's got something.
That's not an
So
excuse.
if you're going to use it as an excuse, fine. But if you're not healthy enough to play and perform, you shouldn't be playing. And if you're healthy enough to play, you're healthy. That's what Derek Jeter always said. I don't remember the exact quote, but if you're healthy enough to play, you're healthy.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're not. And I think that there is a clear line between that for an athlete when you step out there and say, can I perform my best or not with this injury? And I think he absolutely looks like he can right now. And he's not. And he's just mentally, something's not there. But here's the parallel with Wentz. Mainly, I mean, yeah, the team goes to the Super Bowl in their second year. Obviously, it was Hurts' third year, but second year as a starter. Team goes to the Super Bowl. Wentz's case, they win with the backup, but Wentz was going to win the MVP that year if he didn't get hurt. What a weird year for MVP, too. Everyone forgets about it. It was Wentz and Derek Carr. Both broke their legs or tore their ACL with a few weeks left in the season. Whatever. I move on from that. But
who won it that year?
It ended up being, I think Brady ended up getting it, and Todd Gurley was the Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah. Okay.
I think. But anyways, Wentz, they go to the Super Bowl. The next year, they make the playoffs again. They're another favorite, but something's not totally there. And people start to say, well, maybe that offensive coordinator they lost to Indianapolis was really good. And it happened to be Frank Reich, and now it's Shane Steichen. And you say, man, maybe that guy was really good and a huge part of this guy's development. And maybe the offensive head coach they have is not that great. Now, here we are. We're at that point. If next year Hurts looks worse, because they're going to have to blow up this team a little bit. The offensive line's going to shift. Some of these, I
Yeah.
think Jason Kelsey's going to retire after the season.
Yeah.
Lane Johnson is still great. How much longer does he have? And there's going to be some moving parts around Hurts, and you have to see if he can handle it. And I don't know if Sirianni's a very good coach.
No, you don't know that for sure. Their offensive line's old. They've been beat up. They've been there for a while. They've drafted guys to replace a lot of the older guys, but still, it's going to be a change. Defensively, they're not that great. You could do what you want on that defense. Their front, which has been so nasty and labeled as one of the best in the league, especially coming into the year, they miss Hargrave, man. I don't know if you saw Jason Hargrave. He was making plays last night. He is freaking good for a big man
great
in the middle. He's unbelievable. And he was
Jalen
doing that
Carter,
last year, though.
Jalen Carter has gotten a lot of praise this year, and he should because he's a great player, but he's a pass rusher. He is not a dominant run stuffer like a lot of people say he is. And a pick I never loved, and he's not a bad player, and he's been injured this year, was Jordan Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Who is supposed to be the big run stuffer? If you remember Snacks Harrison as a guy,
He's
a New
that.
York guy, that's who he reminded me of at the draft. And it just hasn't worked out completely in that interior for them after replacing Hargrave.
Yeah, it hasn't. Davis, a first and second down guy. He's not going to rush the passer. He's not going to give you anything there. He's. I was literally going to say Snacks too. He snacks. Their secondary's not good. Bradbury's old. He looks cooked.
Did Matt Patricia call the plays last night?
Yeah, and you make that move too. You're showing how vulnerable you are. That's what that move shows, man.
And the fact that Patricia calls the plays tells you all you need to know about the new defensive staff without Gannon.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just the ultimate lack of confidence from Sirianni and whoever makes the decisions.
To make a change.
I don't know. I'd be really worried about the Eagles. I don't think that they could go. I mean, they're lucky that they're going to end up winning that division.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, what do they have next week? They play
the Cardinals and the Giants again.
Yeah, all right. So they won the division.
Yeah. They're going to win the division.
And because I think they have the tie break on the Cowboys.
Something like that. Yeah.
So sure even if they lose the Giants, well, they might not, since it's a conference loss and division loss. But either way, they'll probably win that division. They don't have to go to Dallas, but Dallas could go into Philly and beat them. I don't think Detroit can. But I want to talk about another team right now in the NFC that I think could really shake this up is the Rams.
Yeah.
I like the Rams a lot. I love what Sean McVay's done. When they're all healthy now and you have Kyron and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, Stafford's throwing the ball great. If their defense gets a few big stops in a game, they can beat anyone in this conference. And I like the matchup for them with the 49ers to be the team to upset them. They fared very poorly in the McVay-Shanahan era against San Fran. It's very lopsided.
Yeah.
But it's still a division opponent who knows you better than anybody. I could see them being the team to upset San Fran and go on the run, and they could probably get San Fran in the second round. Also, since we were talking about the storylines with Flacco and Cleveland probably going to Baltimore in the second round if it plays out the way we think, Stafford could very well end up playing a game in Detroit in the first or second round of the playoffs.
Which I think they'd win by a touchdown. The coaching advantage there is just through the roof. McVay.
Dan Campbell, truther?
I like Campbell. I'm not a truther. I don't know what he brings. You know, I know he's a motivational guy, but McVay is McVay. I mean, he's the kid genius, right? He's that, new guy on the block. And he's been there for a while. I shouldn't even say new guy on the block. He's a fantastic coach, and we forget about how good he is when we rank him. Is he one of those guys that you wouldn't get rid of anybody for? He probably is, right?
He's one of my seven. So is Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell's my seventh of the seven.
See, Campbell's not for me. Campbell wouldn't be in that list for me. I think McVay is, though. And when you have Kyron in there, the numbers, their offense is just so much better. They score so many points when they have that running game. Williams makes such a big difference. Obviously, Nacua, was he a 5th-round pick? That's also why having an offensive coach is great. You can, really make these just I mean, obviously everybody hits on late-round picks, but for guys to make impacts like this as a rookie, late-round picks, it's so impressive. And that's what happens when you have an offensive coach. See the talent, know how you're going to use them in your offense. And McVay's hit on these two guys, and it's been special to watch, and we forget about Stafford, how good he is.
All week we've been talking about him. Picks thing forever because of obviously the way they got their Super Bowl and put the finishing pieces on that team. When Les Snead has 4, 5, 6 draft picks, the Rams look great after. He is a great general manager. He's doing a terrific job. What a draft they just had coming off of a terrible season last year where the most exciting thing was Baker Mayfield, who didn't know the playbook. Baker Mayfield again. I mean, the guy, you didn't even need to give him the playbook. He won that game. And that's a testament to Sean McVay, too. Only other guy that's ever done that is Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, Josh Dobbs, Minnesota.
2 guys. Josh Dobbs or Baker Mayfield. Who'd you rather?
Well, 2 weeks ago, I would have been considering Josh Dobbs. Not anymore. It's got to be Baker.
The Dobbs era is over, unfortunately.
It is. It is over. So is the DeVito era. It's
fun
sad.
run, the Dobbs era.
What was more fun, DeVito or Dobbs?
Dobbs.
You think so?
I think Dobbs is my favorite run since Linsanity.
No, come on. You can't give me a New York and then not say DeVito.
Because DeVito, this will be how we wrap up today. DeVito I never thought he was that good. I watched Dobbs and I said Dobbs is good. He's playing like a starter. DeVito, I was like, yeah, you got a good backup.
Yeah.
Cool story. Both of them cool stories. How about this one? Ready? I'm gonna throw you something here.
Oh God.
That my friend sent me, Packers fan, my friend. And I don't know how involved you are with the Packers.
A little bit. I know they hate Joe Barry.
Yes, they hate exactly. So that's all you need to know. Last 2 weeks, Tommy DeVito, NFC Player of the Week. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Week 15, NFC Player of the Week, Baker Mayfield. Both of them up against Joe Barry and the Packers defense in must-win games down that stretch.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it would only take an idiot like myself to have invested their entire fantasy season into the Packers' last 4 weeks using their defense, dropping a lot of goose eggs. But hey, that's not something that people would do. So I don't even know why I brought it up.
And then you give up 30 to the Panthers, who haven't scored anything.
To the Panthers, so that he's getting fired.
Yeah.
A lot of defensive coaches going to be available. You'd imagine Matt Eberflus might be in the division, even though that's a story for almost another day. Bears fascinate me right now. The Chicago Bears fascinate me right now.
Yeah, and the Cardinals too. I think as high as they keep climbing, you got to consider them too. Maybe they take. I don't know. Do they take quarterback?
Listen, man, I'd say right now, and you got to be so tired of me saying this, but if I'm the Bears, I'm getting rid of Luke Getsy. I'm getting Greg Roman. I'm drafting Marvin Harrison at the 1. And I'm going to draft either Brock Bowers or a tackle with my next pick or best defensive player, even though there's not a lot of good ones. And maybe I'll rock with Fields, man.
No.
Caleb Williams doesn't want to be a Bear.
Fire everybody. Trade Fields for whatever you could get. Draft Williams, draft May, draft the tackle, protect the kid. And I think you have enough weapons there for him to.
Where are the Giants picking right now?
5.
Okay. Here's what I think is going to happen.
Giants got to draft quarterback. I'm back on that train.
Here's what I think is going to happen. First time I'm ever saying this on video. Not the first time I'm saying this in real life. Been saying it for about 10 weeks now. Couple days before draft day, you're going to start hearing Caleb Williams will not play for the teams with the top picks. His preferred destination is the Giants.
Really?
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. I know it might sound like a joke because we joke about a lot of stuff with the Giants. And Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are going to send the 5th pick. They're going to send the year of Daniel Jones that's left on the deal. And they're going to send multiple other picks to the Bears, who will get the 1st pick, who will get the 5th pick, and all those players, and maybe keep Justin Fields and just build around those guys. But I think Caleb Williams is going to end up being a Giant one way or another. I just see it happening with Daboll, and I see it happening with his dad. Him and his dad have been very verbal that they will not play for a team they don't want to play for. Out of those top 7 teams, is there a situation a quarterback is going to be better in than the Giants? I don't think so.
No, because you don't have the coach in New England. You don't know who it's going to be. You know Daboll's going to be there. You know what Daboll has done with other quarterbacks. Yeah, I think coaching-wise, not weapon-wise yet, but coaching-wise, you have to consider it. I'd give up next year's first for it. I would, to go get Caleb.
I'd give up more than that.
I think it's going to cost more. No, it's going to cost more than that. It's going to cost next
Yeah.
year's first, obviously the 5th overall pick. Probably one of your seconds. I'd hope to keep one of them. See what you could do. Yeah, you get me excited there. I would love Caleb Williams. I'm not one of these people that say, oh, Caleb Williams wouldn't succeed in New York. No, this kid's going to be a star quarterback. I'd like it to be for my team.
Drake May is going to end up being the first quarterback drafted that will play for the team that drafts him. Put it that way. I think Caleb bounces out, and I think it should be and will be the Giants that he ends up with. But let's wrap it there on a funky draft take way too early in the middle of this or end of December now for the BTO Sunday recap on a Tuesday. We won't be back next Sunday as planned, but maybe next Monday or Tuesday, definitely in some capacity. Just next Sunday is New Year's Eve. I know I'm working. I know you're going to be recreating.
Yes, having a good time.
And that's what New Year's Eve is for. So we'll jump in the day after the second day of the week there on Tuesday. Make sure to catch us then and follow us, BTO Media. It's the only place you can catch a Sunday recap. And also follow Hardline Sports Talk with Mike, the playbook, to see all of Gabe's negative energy. And you can watch the main thing on BTO every week, as well as more coming to you. Thanks for watching. Like it, subscribe, do whatever you got to do, and we'll catch you next week live. Always 7:30 on Sundays, except for this week and next week, but always on the other weeks.